Hey, what's up guys? Today we are going to create a custom animated FAB menu. We are not going to reinvent the wheel, rather we'll learn how you can make your own custom FAB menu. There are many libraries for the same, but there are certain limitations in almost each of them. They cannot be customized fully, and that is the main problem. After learning, it will enable you to implement your own style, and that's the whole point of this tutorial. So let's begin. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe and press the bell icon for notifications, and do like if you like the video or dislike, as it will enable me to make better videos. Start by creating a new project. Let's call it FAB Menu. API to be 21 and with an empty activity. Now to add a floating action button, we need to include the design support library. The link will be in the description below. Just copy it and go to your build.gradle file and paste it in here in the implementation of the design support library like this. Sync it now. Let's go back to our resource directory in the layout file, that is the activity main.xml. Now let's remove this text view from here and include in our linear layout. The width would be wrap content and the height would also be wrap content. Let's give it a background color of color primary, and its ID, I think we do not need an ID for this linear layout. Let's wait while the Gradle build is finished. Now let us include our floating action buttons. Since we are going in a vertical layout, so let's give it an orientation of vertical, and let's add in our floating action buttons. Height and width to be wrap content, and its ID to be something like FAB main, and its size to be FAB size to be normal. Here. Now you can see we have a FAB size to be we have a floating action button of normal size. Let's constrain a linear layout to the bottom and right margins. Margin bottom should be 16 dp and margin end should be also 16 dps. Now we can remove the background color, and since this is our main action button which will trigger the menu on and off, so let's add 4 more buttons, not 4 but 3 more buttons, floating action buttons, which will be displayed on top of this button, like something like here 1, 2 and 3. So add in again a floating action button with wrap content, and tint color to be add Android color white with a size of, let's give it a size of mini, a mini floating action button. Let's give it an ID of say FAB 1. Let's copy and paste it 2 more times to make two more buttons, and accordingly give them ID of FAB 2, and this should be FAB 3 because it's at the top, and this one should be FAB 2, and then our FAB 1, and then the main floating action button. Now let's give some gravity to our linear layout to be center horizontal, and we have our floating action buttons on top of each other. Give all of them a margin of 4 dp so that the total margin between each of the buttons is 8 dp. Layout margin should be 4 dp. Let's copy this and paste it in all the buttons so that we have a nice gap of 8 dp between each of the buttons. Let's give our main button a tint also, like white. Now to add icons in these buttons, let's go to our drawable folder and right click on it and add a vector assets, new vector asset. Let's add a vector asset of add from the material design. Let's call it it's okay whatever it is. Let's do next and click on finish. And now if you add this vector drawable in your floating action button, the main floating action button, we can add it like this, drawable IC add black. So we have a floating action button with an icon. Similarly, adding 3 more vector assets for the other 3 floating action buttons. Now since we have added all the vector assets and now let's go back to our main activity file. Now let's define all the floating action buttons. Now let us find all of these buttons in the onCreate method. since initially we only want our main button to be active and all the other three to be disabled, not disabled, and their opacity to be 0. They should not be visible. So let's give them an alpha value of 0 on each of the buttons. Let's add an on-click listener to each of the buttons. This is giving an error because we have not implemented the on-click listener. Let's implement it like this: implements view dot on click listener. Now implement its methods like this. So now whenever a fab button is clicked, we can find it here using view dot get id, and then we can act accordingly. Let's create a new method calling it private void init fab menu, like so, and just copy all this piece of code here and paste it in init fab menu, and let's call our method from here init fab menu, so that our on create method is a bit clean. Let's also give each of the buttons a translation downwards on the positive y-axis, that is the downward direction of your mobile phone. So let's give them translation of say 100. Now fab1 dot set translation y, and translation y should be float. So why not define it here, float translation y equal to 100f, and we can just put in a translation y like this. And similarly for fab2 dot set translation y, and for fab3 its translation y to be translation y, which is defined up here. Let's make another variable, boolean variable is menu open, and initialize it to be false. Menu is not open initially. And now what happens is that when a person clicks on the fab main, we have to open the menu, and whenever he clicks on fab main again, we have to close the menu. So let's create two more methods, private void open menu. I could have used a single method, but using two methods, it will be more easier to understand. If you want, you can change it to only one method. I will tell you how to do that. Private void close menu. So in both the methods, the first thing is to do that when a person opens the menu, is menu open should be equal to true. Is menu open equal to not is menu open. We are just changing whatever the value is in the is menu open, like this. Now whenever a person clicks on the fab main button, we have to open the menu, and whenever he clicks again on the same fab main button, we have to close the menu. So let's go to our on click method and let's check, rather we should use the switch statement. Switch view dot get id, keys 1 to be r dot id dot fab main, and other cases also. Let's log it in the console what happens whenever someone clicks on these buttons. So let's check if is menu open. If the menu is open, we have to close the menu, else we have to open the menu like this. So now to open the menu, what we have to do, we have to do some animation while it is opening, and it's performed like this, FAB, and we rotate our main button to 45 degrees to the right. FAB main dot animate dot translation y by 0, and its alpha to be 1f, and we can use an interpolator also. Let's define our interpolator here at the top. We'll use an overshoot interpolator equal to new overshoot interpolator like this, and we can use this interpolator here dot set interpolator. It gives a nice effect, that's why I'm using this interpolator. Otherwise, if you don't want any effect, you want it to be linear, then don't use an interpolator, and set its duration to be 300 milliseconds, and then just start the animation like this. Oh, we have to use the FAB1 button because we have translated these three buttons downwards. So just copy them, copy this and paste it 2 more times, and for FAB2, and this should be FAB3. Now similarly, again to close the menu, what we have to do is we are going to copy this piece of code and paste it here in the close menu, and translation y should be again translation y, and its alpha to be 0, and rest all the things are same. And for the main button, what we'll do is we'll animate that button. We'll just rotate that button. So going to our open menu, to open the menu, FAB main dot animate dot set interpolator to be the same interpolator, and then its rotation by a float value. Float value should be 45f, and its duration should be 300 milliseconds, and start. Just copy this again and paste it in here in the close menu, and rotation should be 0f while it is closed. And so that's it, I think. So let's run our application and see what happens. Let's zoom in a little bit. Now see, if we close the menu, nothing is happening. If we open the menu, it's doing. Why is it not closing? Why is it not closing? Everything is fine, but why the main button is not working as we thought it was supposed to work? It should be open menu minus 45. It should be rotation by and set duration. Okay, it should be rotation only, not rotation by. Just copy it, run it again. Let's see what happens. Yeah, now you see, when we are opening the menu, the plus sign is converted into cross by rotation, and these all three buttons are displaying. Now let's go to our log file. All these buttons are working. this button is working, FAB1, FAB2, FAB3, and close this menu. Now if you want to close the menu by itself whenever you click on this button, then it's very simple. Just go to this on click view method and go to this FAB1, and you say like if you want to handle FAB1 like this, private void handle FAB1 like this, log something here, handle FAB1 is fine, and now let's call handle FAB1, and then if you want to close the menu by itself, then again using the statement, if is menu open, then we need to close the menu, else open menu like this, and run this application again. Now whenever we click on our FAB1, it will be automatically closed. See, handle FAB1 was called, so you can do your work here, and then again it is automatically closed. We have not implemented in the third button, we have implemented auto close on the first button itself. So that's it, and it's better to use it like this because you can highly customize this. Otherwise in a library you have to do the way they have set it up for you. One beautiful way to set this button up is rather that's a task for you. Just add the main floating action button here, and these other floating mini buttons, 2 on the left and 2 on the right, and whenever you click the main button, the 2 buttons should follow this path and 2 should follow this path, and whenever you close they just collapse and hide. So that's a task for you, and thank you. If you like my video, do like, and if you dislike my video, do dislike, and please do comment as to why you didn't like the video, and do subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye bye.